Welcome to this edition of the Beef Roundtable. This month, our discussion will focus on value-added niche marketing. I'm Dr. Ron Lemonager, Beef Extension Specialist at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana. The Beef Roundtable is available as a video at both the Beef Magazine website, www.beefroundtable.com website, and is downloadable as an MP3 at beefroundtable.com.
And I'm Bert Rutherford, Senior Editor of Beef Magazine from Wheat Ridge, Colorado. Our first guest is Robbie LeValley. Robbie's from western Colorado, where she and her husband Mark operate LeValley Ranch. Robbie is very involved in the beef business. She's past president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, serves on NCBA's Public Lands Council, and is chair of NCBA's Federal Lands Committee. Right at 20 years ago, 6 Colorado ranching families came together in the North Fork Valley and formed Homestead Meats as a way to add value to their livestock. The co-op now owns its own USDA packing plant, a wild game processing facility, and 2 storefronts. The co-op markets value-added natural Colorado products such as sausage, jerky, meat sticks, and ready-to-cook entrees.
Our second guest is Dave Fisher from Southern Indiana. After a career in supply chain technologies to improve manufacturing efficiency, Dave and his wife Diane returned to the family farm in 2002 and established Fisher Farms LLP and Fisher Farms Natural Foods LLC. In 2004, they began selling their beef directly to restaurants and individual consumers. As their business grew, they created partnerships with a meat processor and other local producers to supply over 16 skids of beef, pork, eggs, chicken, and even maple syrup weekly to over 100 restaurants and retail stores across the state of Indiana.
Robbie and Dave, let's have both of you kind of go back to the beginning and describe for us your journey in establishing a value-added marketing system, really, or business. How did you get started, and how hard was it?
Well, in 1995, in our area, we had the pleasure of having Doc and Connie Hatfield come to the area and make a presentation about Oregon country beef. And they actually spent a couple of days there and went through everything that we had there, the processing capacity, the location to market, and really took a hard look. And in our group, there was actually a large audience that attended that. And in our area, there was a group that started and really took forward. We decided that we would start small and market direct to the consumers that we already knew, and basically started with just the 5 and then grew to the 6 ranches that formed this limited liability partnership of Homestead Meats. So that's how it started, and it started just selling the product and partnering with a local processor. When that local processor decided that he was going to retire, then Homestead Meats made the critical business decision to purchase the USDA packing plant.
Dave, how about you? How did you get started?
Sure. And a lot of people ask me, why did you get started, is probably the biggest question. We really looked at it as when we got back into the beef cattle business, we decided we wanted to raise the cattle naturally. It was just a philosophy my wife and I shared. And so, we looked at what kind of premiums were available. And unfortunately in Indiana, almost all of our beef gets shipped out to packing plants out west. And the premium that I could really lock in for the natural cattle did not justify the additional expense in natural. So we started looking at alternatives and just found out that we had a really good quality product that we felt like we could sell direct. So that combined with the idea of reducing the market volatility, not necessarily getting rich on it, but not getting stuck with buying feeder calves at $2 a pound and end up selling fat cattle at $1.50. So that's kind of the whole philosophy behind why we got started. And then how we got started was just going out and knocking on doors. Mostly we focused on restaurants one afternoon I knocked on 17 restaurant doors and got one yes. So that was kind of our start.
Well, it seems to me that when you start into an entrepreneurial kind of endeavor like what both of you have done, it seems to me that there'd be lots of hurdles and roadblocks and just problems that jump up that you don't anticipate. Did you experience any of that?
Certainly, we've often been asked, why don't you write a book about everything? And we've talked about it, and the great thing is we can sit around and visit about what we've learned. The hurdles, we went through the whole gamut of how to market, how not to market, the supply chain, when the cattle are ready, when they're not ready, hired labor as an issue, all of that. Some of the early hurdles were just taking restaurants at their word and gearing up and getting cattle in the supply chain based on a contract, and then realizing that the contract wasn't worth the paper it was printed on, and some of those issues. But it's made us really concentrate on what was there for a margin and make the business decisions based on that margin and concentrate on selling direct to the consumer. We continue to supply a few restaurants with that, but also realizing that, I appreciate what Dave said. There is a tremendous potential there with the restaurants, but we found that in our area with the Tellurides and the Aspen, if we just target more of a special on a 1 month basis, highlight our meat instead of year round, it works much better from a margin and just from the supply chain for our area. So we work hard at just selling direct to the consumer.
So let's follow. Dave, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I've talked to a lot of other people that are trying to do the similar things to what we're doing, and there's no one correct answer on the way to do it. I know some folks in Indianapolis or near Indianapolis, a bigger city, that are able to sell direct, and that seems to work well for them. We've been able to work with restaurants, and we really like the volume and the consistency they supply us as far as the demand side. And then, we've just kind of geared up our production to be available every week, which is the hardest thing for restaurants. They don't want something that's here for 3 weeks and then it's not available. So we've really focused our whole supply chain, both on the beef perspective and from a neighbor that produces hogs, to have those ready each and every week. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that we found getting going into this is to meet that high expectations of quality and have it available every week.
So what's your market research? I know both of you have kind of looked at this industry and the market potential in your particular areas, and they are different, okay, between Colorado and Indiana. So what does your market research say about beef attributes that consumers want?
So in our area, we partnered with Colorado State University to do a very exhaustive research of the surrounding area, and we defined the surrounding area. Again, we're in western Colorado, about 250 miles west of Denver, but we included the Denver metro area in our area of influence when we did the survey. And what the survey came back with is we really have 5 distinct markets. Everything from the price conscious to the lifestyle to where they just want to make sure that they buy something from an individual that raises the product locally. And so based on those 5 target areas, then we were able to narrow down that we are just going to concentrate on those that want to purchase local, those that are want to purchase for the lifestyle, and then we actually have a target of ours because of where we are for those that are price conscious, and we have definite product that is for that segment as well. So instead of trying to market to all 5 segments, we target those: lifestyle, local, and price conscious.
And that's very similar to what we view it, but we look at it kind of on a spectrum. If you take it the organic and natural versus conventional beef, there are consumers out there that want everything grass-fed, very organic, the ultra organic customer, if you will, and they're willing to pay for it usually. But there are also folks that are looking for what I call more clean meat, that it doesn't have the chemicals added in processing, doesn't have the growth hormones and so forth. And so that segment of the market is what we've kind of really targeted. And I would say that's what we want, or that's what we provide. The other thing is a very consistent, high quality as far as taste and tenderness. And those are the customers we want. There are some customers that don't care that our meat's natural, but they like that the steak tastes good every time. And so that's who we're really targeting.
So do both of you target a particular endpoint, a carcass endpoint? Are you targeting choice yield grade 3s or better, or are you doing something different than that?
Because we have the 6 ranches, and all of the 6 ranches are spring calving, and the supply chain, then we really do target that high select, low choice. And some of the ranches, the calves have to be, or the yearlings, or the heifers that come in open, the young heifers that come in open, may take as few as 90 days, or based on some circumstances, they may be longer. But we target that high select, low choice range, and then we are dry aged, and certainly that helps from that consistency standpoint.
We go a little bit. We try to really target the prime market, and we'll accept high choice. Somewhere in that range is what we're really pushing for, especially within the last, 3 or 4 years with feed prices low. We will overfinish cattle just to ensure the marbling's there, as well as to get the growth. And so I took a couple loads up today that were around 1,600 pounds for finished Angus cattle. So they're really at that high choice prime.
Both of you have touched on the various attributes that your research and just anecdotally that you understand that the consumer segment that you're targeting really wants in the meat that they buy. Is there any particular attribute you think that makes your particular product unique? And more importantly, what makes it worth more to that consumer? What makes that consumer willing to pay more for the product that you provide to them?
Again, based on all of the research that we've done, and then the satisfaction surveys that we complete and have our customers really provide that critical input, it is the fact that we are local, and they absolutely know that we control the animal from the gate to the plate, and especially because we own and operate the USDA packing plant as well. And then the fact that we always say that, for 90% of that animal's life before it's harvested, it is on grass, and then we do finish it on corn to add the flavor and consistency. And so we market that way for our consumers, the fact that it's dry aged, the fact that they can look at the product, they can come back, we have the money back guarantee. All of that has lent itself to a high customer satisfaction for Homestead Meats.
We really target our product, our marketing around 4 things, and I'll just kind of show this if I can focus this on it. There we go. But anyways, in almost all the literature we put out, it's premium, natural, local, and fresh. And those are the premium is obviously that it's super high quality, tenderness and marbling and so forth. Natural, no growth hormones, no antibiotics consistently in the feed, only for therapeutic. Local is obvious. And then the fresh, custom cuts. One thing we really strive to do, the hogs that we butcher get butchered on Monday morning, and some of our chefs are receiving that product Wednesday morning. So it's very fresh. And then our beef, we do dry age for 2 weeks. But again, we take their cutting orders on Monday, and they're what they need to receive. And again, some of those chefs are receiving it Wednesday, some of them are receiving it Friday. So we really try to tailor to what the chefs are looking for. A lot of them want very unique products. They want 12-inch bone on their short ribs. And those kind of things really help us as far as the carcass yield, if you will.
Both of your marketing enterprises have kind of engaged other farms and ranches, okay? We've kind of talked about that a little bit. Tell us about your thought process behind why you selected your partners and how you went about that.
So for Homestead Meats, it was more, it started out who was already neighboring together. The North Fork Valley of Delta County is just that. It's just a valley, and those 6 ranches already had a relationship, primarily most of them with a common grazing allotment on a U.S. Forest Service land, and then others with business partnerships with equipment and sharing of bulls and that. So those partnerships to that point already existed for the 6 ranches that now operate Homestead Meats. And again, when the presentation was made by the Hatfields, then it was kind of the natural, we're already working together, we already run cattle together on the Forest Service, let's see if we can take this the next step.
On our side, I wish I could tell you there was this grand plan and we knew all along we were going to be selling produce and eggs and chicken and so forth, but it really kind of evolved over time. One of the chefs that we worked with back in 2006, so we were pretty early on, I think we were selling like 2 steers a week and so forth. I met with him about every Thursday at lunch when I delivered product to him, and his quote was, "Dave, you know a lot of farmers. I'm looking for pork." And then it was about 6 months later, he said, "Again, Dave, you know a lot of farmers. My pastry chef wants 2 dozen extra large brown eggs every week." And so he said, "Can you find me some?" So more as a service to the chefs, we kind of started falling into that. And then, we finally got the idea after they beat us over the head with it a few times that it really is a service that we can provide to the customer. So everybody is wanting to do farm to fork, but the chefs are very busy. They don't have time to kind of vet, which is I guess the popular political term right now, but vet through all the different suppliers and to figure out, who's going to provide me with a consistent quality, where can I get the product, and then I know it's going to be there if I put it on the menu. So we've kind of provided that service to our customers, to the restaurants, and say, if you're looking for a pork product or you want to replace that pork chop that you're getting via Cisco, you want to get it local, we've got an option for you on that. So, and then as far as, I'm sorry, but as far as who we selected, we're looking for the same kind of attributes that they could provide it very consistently, high quality, there every week, those kind of things.
And I would just add that we have a similar story with because through the USDA plant, we do the processing of the beef, pork, lamb, and goat. But through the relationships of talking to several people that we know and people that have similar mindset of production practices and that, then we're able to offer the same production practice and therefore marketing for the sheep and the goat, even though none of the 6 ranches raise those animals.
What has been the most rewarding aspect as you look back, Robbie, over 20 years and Dave, over the past years that you've been doing it, what's been most rewarding for you as far as the business, as far as the cooperative type of business model that you've developed? We
took quite a few years, and we would do farmers markets every Saturday in Aspen and Glenwood Springs and other areas. And the 6 ranches would take their turns. And the kids on our ranch and the kids on the other ranches would go with us to do the farmers markets. And that, watching them evolve to be part of, selling the product and telling the story and interacting with customers and counting change and all of that comes with farmers markets, and really being able to tell the story about not only our beef, but beef in general as a whole to individuals was very rewarding. I mean, then to have that constant interaction back from the customer was also very rewarding. But now that we have evolved to more of the storefronts and less of the farmers markets, watching all of the kids still tell the stories from that and really have that ingrained in them to be able to clearly articulate the benefit of a healthy lifestyle with beef as part of the diet. And it is very rewarding. But if I take a step and look at more of our customer, just the customer that comes in every week and says, give me my usual, and we have it there, and we know what they want, and they're appreciative, and that's a great feeling. But also just the ability to say, here's our food supply in whole, and here's how you benefit from a very healthy lifestyle with our products.
On our end, those are the two main things that I see as well that we've enjoyed over the years. And obviously, with our kids are all now in college, one just graduated, but having them involved in the whole business side of things, not just the farm, which they were heavily involved in the farming as well, but just to have them go through that experience as they're growing up on the entrepreneurial, both the lessons we learned, the things we did well, and the mistakes we made. They were there with us the whole way through, and really understand. I think the entrepreneurial spirit and the whole side of making a business work. That and just the opportunity to work with the kids, and obviously to work with my wife. She's very heavily involved in the business. She's in charge of all the order fulfillment. She takes all the orders, makes sure everything gets packaged right, and so forth. So we're still married after doing this for 12 years. And we've enjoyed that. And I would probably add one thing as people are looking at this. Sorry about that. My wife is the phone guru. I have to edit this part out. I don't know how to shut off the phone. I'm in her office.
We all wish we knew.
Sorry about that. Alrighty. So now, the other thing, as people are considering doing this, the one really rewarding thing is I feel like our farm is now something that I can proudly turn over to the next generation as they're interested in doing that. It would be difficult in the standard selling commodities farming to, I just see that as such a high risk. I'm not for sure I would encourage my kids to do that. But now that we have more of a market defined for us, and I think more of a long-term arrangement with our customers, that I feel a lot more confident in handing it over to the next generation.
So along with the upside, there's always going to be some challenges associated with the business. So, what do you think the biggest challenges associated with kind of your joint venture marketing strategy, marketing these specialty products? So what's the biggest challenges that you could share with the audience?
Well, certainly one of the challenges that we have is, because we are marketing so many different specialty products, we're right now going through a pretty exhaustive review process. Is all of these products still where we need to be from a return standpoint? And, a lot of times one of the members has gotten tied to, I really like the German sausage, and don't you dare not do the German sausage. And so, it's just that whole communication, and, we have different levels of engagement right now. There's, 2 of the 6 that are looking at doing less, and then there's 4 of the 6 that are ramping up. And so, you've got that different stages, and those are always communication issues. But again, when we look back, we're here. We've been here for 20 years. We've weathered the communication. If you were to ask us in 20 years from now, communication will still be an issue, but we'll still be working on it. But always taking that step and having that outside person take a hard look at everything and just do an analysis, I think is critical, just so we're not making decisions based on emotion.
Makes sense. I would say one of our biggest challenges from day one, and it continues to be the biggest challenge, is selling the whole carcass at the right price. Luckily, and beef is probably the trickiest of the species that we sell, to make sure everything goes out, because you can't sell even a sirloin. You can't grind up a sirloin and sell it at a good enough price. You got to sell it as a sirloin steak. So we divide the sirloin up into a regular sirloin, and which we usually sell about 8 to 10 ounces, and then we also sell a trotter steak, which looks like a mock fillet, named after Chef Trotter up in Chicago, so we can get a good premium for that. And then we sell the tri-tip out as well. So that's been our biggest challenge over the years. Right now I'm facing an issue of, we had a large customer take a lot of pork loins. So they informed me about 3 weeks ago that their seasonal business is going to drop off this fall. So I'm probably going to have about 600 pounds a week of pork loin to go out there and sell. So that's just one of those, those kind of things come up frequently. Like right now I'm heavy on New York strips. So getting that all worked through, all the time, that's by far our biggest challenge.
So I think I'm hearing both of you kind of say that, that supply chain and the timing of that supply chain becomes one of the pretty significant challenges, particularly when you think about holiday events that may increase the volume of this product over that product, and so that becomes something that people have got to think about if they're thinking about marketing in this kind of a manner. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. We still do not have that beef animal that has 20 prime ribs when it comes to Christmas. And so, that's absolutely. So right now we are basically harvesting additional animals for the Christmas season. And because we offer the frozen product, then it's, that allows us to help with that supply and be able to ramp up and for that. But it's still a problem. We still have the issue where you come December 24th at 4 p.m., we may not have product there, and that doesn't always help with the customer relations. But, certainly the supply chain is something that we constantly have to work on, and then it changes. I mean, what we've seen in the last 2 years primarily with the downturn in some of the economy in some of in our area is a shift to buying more hamburger. Now, certainly that helps us from a standpoint we're not storing a ton of hamburger, where prior to that we were drowning in hamburger. And so it's all of those kinds of things that you constantly have to be evolving. In our spreadsheet of our inventory at times is pretty messy, but it takes 24/7 attention to that, and just marketing that, and what to put on special and what not to, and what to try to work with the few restaurants we do work with. What could they highlight as special?
And very similar issues that we face. Christmas rush. We tell our customers get their orders in November for Christmas. It's just one of the hardest things we have to deal with. So I don't really want to repeat everything Robbie said, because it's very similar to what are similar type issues, and we just feel like we need to. You're probably going to edit this part out. Let me think here for a second. Yeah, I guess it all goes back to just selling that whole carcass and consistently selling that carcass. One of the things we've seen, I was in the software business before I got back into the beef business, and the software business, if you need 100 more copies, it takes you 2 hours to run 100 more discs. Got it. And I think also the chefs are so used to being able to say, Cisco, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I want 2 cases of ribeyes tomorrow morning. And so not being able to supply that is frustrating from a business owner, and frustrating from our customer perspective as well. there is not an endless supply of each cut. And as we've been growing 15 to 20, 25% every year. And that sounds great, but at the same time, you got to look at all that goes into the supply chain side of that to make that happen. And so it's frustrating. It's also, I would think, a barrier to entry. It keeps other people from being able to do this. It's difficult for the Cisco's to compete with us as far as the freshness, the quality, and so forth. But it's a tough game, and we sell 800 products. We have about 450 line items going out every week on 120 different orders. And so the complexity to get everything sold every week, it's a tough nut to crack.
How do you attract your customers? Do you advertise? Do you use social media? Or do you have a customer base now that just word of mouth brings you in new business?
We have a pretty solid customer base, but what we are doing now is branching out into the Denver market. And certainly as we start branching out into the Denver market, that does mean that we will deliver, which we can do. That has taken on a targeted market of targeting the fire districts and those kind of specials that helps us limit our small advertising dollar. We're not trying to market to the mass Denver. We're going after those individuals that work in the fire districts, one, because we already had a connection there, but two, that helps us target. We are doing some with social media. Like I said, there's the second generation certainly are helping us with that. And most of our second generation, they're all in college now, and they've taken that on as kind of their project to contribute. And sometimes we have to remind them that they haven't put up anything for a couple of weeks, and then they'll, throw stuff up. But that's been what they've taken on for us, and certainly that helps as well. But again, a pretty solid customer base that's loyal. But that's also part of why we're doing this third-party review right now. We know that we could do better. We're revamping, just the website as it is, just because we know that we've always got to keep things doing better. And we're good and solid where we are, but, can we say that 5 years from now? That's why we're taking this hard look at our whole advertising.
Maybe I should talk a little bit about how we progressed. I started off, as I told before, knocking on 17 restaurants' doors, got one to say yes. And I used to do all the deliveries myself, and that was just a great learning opportunity for me. I got to meet with all the chefs every week. Maybe it was for 30 seconds. Maybe they'd sit down with me for 10 minutes. And I had one chef who would go through every steak I delivered, and he would show me, okay, these 5 are good. This one's got a little bit too much of a thinner section on it. Yes, it's 12 ounces, but it gets thinner. And I'm like, why is that such a big issue? And he's like, well, if you're trying to cook this thing medium, that end's going to be well done, and so forth. So all those kind of learning with the chefs, but also I was able to create a connection with a lot of them where a lot of them are still our customers, and they've referred us to other chefs. So it's kind of word of mouth, but generating kind of this network of chefs. I found out the chefs are pretty tight. The other great thing is chefs don't stay in their jobs very long, which is great from the standpoint. They move to another restaurant, and if you're in good with that chef, hopefully he'll bring you to the next restaurant, and then the key is to try to stay in the one that he left.
So what would be your recommendations to a producer that kind of wanted to think about marketing beef in this kind of a manner? What would you tell him? What would be your recommendations for that producer or a group of producers?
Well, we actually offer the co-pack opportunities with our USDA packing plant for different groups, and certainly we've answered that question over and over. We first ask for their sanity test, but the bottom line is, we tell people start out with selling halves and quarters. If your target market is consumers, then start out doing that, because then you don't have an issue of, having, 5 freezers in everyone's basement full of hamburger and nothing else is there. But start out that way, start out building your customer base that way. And we're glad to work with anybody from a co-pack standpoint, help them get their label and all of that through the whole process, and because that certainly takes a considerable amount of time that no one thinks about as well. But that's why we always encourage people to start out that way, and then really walk them through the shrink. And the shrink based on, if you're going to start selling it by the individual package, you have packages that something will happen that you can't market, and all of that, and really say, okay, at the end of the day, is the 7% or 8% return, is that work into your business plan? And so we're glad to do that, but we really want to show people that there's a lot of hidden costs to all of this. But again, we're always willing to help people get started.
What I've told a lot of folks is, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? If you're raising 40 cattle every year, are you trying to get a more consistent price for those, and you want to market them all at the same time? Then I would do exactly as Robbie said. Try to find, 80 customers that are going to buy a half a beef. We looked at it as we wanted to make this more of a business and be able to grow, and we really did a little looking into what Neiman Ranch does. And we looked and said, we want to make a business not to be as big as Neiman Ranch, but based on those same guidelines that we're going to be able to supply restaurants. We're going to make this into what I term, a real business versus a mom and pop does it after, after all the chores are done kind of thing. And so, and not to say there's anything wrong with that's fine. Like I said, it's just, what are your goals, and then kind of lay out a strategy to achieve those goals, and it's different for each individual. I would also take a look at what skill sets do you have and what do you want to be doing. I was in some early discussions with a group of farmers that wanted to sell directly to some restaurants, and the person kind of leading the activity said, okay, who in this group, and there was about a group of 30 of us, who's willing to go out and sell to the restaurants? And I was the only out of the 30 people who raised their hands. And one guy stood up and said, I don't want to do that. I just want to get retail prices for my beef. And I look at it and say, you got to be willing to put in the work, the dedication, the time, and do it for the long haul. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme by any means. There's a lot of capital that goes in up front, a lot of time and effort. And, if somebody wants to do that, I think, the nice thing is in the beef industry, the marketing opportunities are there because the beef industry is so dominated by the very large suppliers that they do not fill all the niches, and there's a lot of open markets out there.
Well, Dave, that's a really good segue into the next question, which is, what does your crystal ball show? What's the future for niche marketing, particularly in the business models that both of you have established?
That's a great question, one that we're really taking a hard look at right now, because we do want to be here, the next 20 years. And what do we need to be doing right now to position ourselves to make sure it's there? Truly, I continue to believe that the local affiliation, the local knowledge, we see that with the individuals that are moving into our area, whether it be our beef or the neighbors' tomatoes or that. There is a continual increase in the demand to knowing where your product comes from, and being able to say that, when you serve your meal that night, that this is all local product. But I do think that as a whole, then we really need to say to the individual that's walking in the door, not only is this local, but this fits a model that addresses all of your other issues, whether that be the greenhouse gas issue or the sustainability issue or the open space issue. here is how our beef as a whole, when we look at the federal lands, when we look at all of the greenhouse gases, the concentrated, all that, here's how our beef fits into all of the concerns that you may have, and clearly be able to articulate that. And we believe that we can, and we do that, but again, we just have the consumer that's putting more and more emphasis on all of those issues, and they bring that to their buying decision.
From my standpoint, and as I told you earlier, we really market ourselves as being premium, natural, local, and fresh. And I always say one of those doesn't travel very well. And so it kind of limits your market to be able to say that this is locally produced. We sell probably our farthest away customer is about a 6-hour drive, but still all of it in Indiana. We have Louisville that's an hour away from us. And we've looked at the marketing to Louisville, but it's across state lines, which is a regulation issue, but it's also just a perception issue. You know, people in Kentucky want to buy Kentucky beef. People in Tennessee, which Nashville is only 2.5 hours from us, but people in Tennessee want to buy beef raised in Tennessee. So we're looking to do some partnerships. We're in some initial discussions with some folks in Kentucky and some folks in Missouri, and I think that makes a lot of sense. We want to continue to grow our business in Indianapolis, although it is kind of interesting, and I've talked with another producer who actually smokes a lot of the meats that we sell to them. And the issue gets to be market saturation. And we, you know, a lot of companies would look at it and say, you get 20, 30%, you're at market saturation. Well, we are probably more at the 1 to 2%. You know, if we're selling 2% of the beef in a city, all of a sudden we're not so unique anymore. We're not that exceptional product that a chef wants to put on the table or on his menu. So, you know, we have to look and figure out when are we at the point where we're losing a premium because, you know, so many different restaurants are carrying our products, which would sound like I'm whining or whatever, and that's an issue, but it really is an issue as you look at growth. You know, where are you going to go and trying to avoid just being another commodity product out there.
Any last comments, words of wisdom that we haven't covered that you think is valuable to share?
One of the big questions we get asked a number of times from people who are thinking about going into this business is, does it pay? And, you know, we answer it very honestly with them and say, if you're expecting that this will be a big return, then this is not the business plan for you. But what this has done, especially as we look at this last year when we've seen such a dramatic decrease in the live cattle price and that, is it does even out the cash flow. We've built into the business plan a set price, and that set price is based on all of our costs and a return, and that's how we market the product, that's how we price it out the door. So it does even out the cash flow. So from that standpoint, yes, you would enter into that. You would take the time and effort in that. But this is not something that is going to provide that return on investment that would be similar to you know, another industry. It's still a return on investment on the ag industry, but again, it has evened out the cash flow for all of the 6 ranches. Having the USDA packing plant is added a whole level of complexity, you know, through dealing with labor and USDA and all of that. But certainly that has also been a market niche for us because we truly can say from the gate to the plate. But that's not for everyone. And certainly as we look at the tremendous labor issues that not only faces our industry but every other industry, that is something that is not for every entrepreneur that wants to go into this business. So those would be the 2 questions that I don't think that we've talked about that I would also add to the conversation.
And I would probably like to reiterate that, and that's the question I always get asked by producers is, has this been financially rewarding? Is this, what everyone should be doing? And I always look at it, and one of the packers that we work with told me that they had 28 producers work with them over the last 5 years trying to do similar things to what we're doing. And at that time, there were 3 of us left. There's a lot of people that get into it, kind of dip their toe into it, find out it's really complex, it's really hard, and jump back out. And that's fine too. So I think if you're thinking about doing that, be careful of not investing too much capital that you're not going to be able to get back out. You go buy some cattle, you can sell those cattle. You go buy a packing plant, you better be in that for a long time. So I would just be cautious and really define your goals up front, what you're trying to achieve, both from a financial standpoint, what business do you want to achieve, and kind of what lifestyle. My wife and I have put in a lot of hours. Our kids have put in a lot. I spent a lot of days in a truck driving around cities slinging meat to different chefs, and it was tough getting going. It was not financially rewarding for quite some time. It is now, but it wasn't then. And so, just are they ready to do that? And again, it kind of depends on what goal the producer has in mind.
Well, thank you very much. That about wraps up this edition of the Beef Roundtable. Bert and I would like to thank our guests, Robbie LeValley and Dave Fisher, for sharing their insight and their experience with marketing value-added beef. Please join us again next month for another exciting issue of the Beef Roundtable.